Greetings folks, today I wanted to share with you a cost-effective solution to get some lighting on your countertops and have it recessed and look professional underneath the cabinets, so that for $17 and literally about half an hour of your time, you can go from this to this. This is the kit that I purchased on Amazon for $16.99. It's about 13 feet of this adhesive backed LED that comes on this reel, and this is the protective strip that you pull back to secure it underneath your cabinet. It comes with this RF remote, which is pretty cool, and it comes with these connectors because while it's on this reel as 13 feet, it's actually broken into 20-inch segments that you can pull apart, and the intention of that is because this LED strip is not very forgiving in terms of flexibility. If you want to change direction, you simply break it at the 20-inch segment and then plug this on, and then you can change direction. It also gives you some of these adhesive clips if you need to hang or hide some of these wires, as well as the wiring for the power supply. I'll put a link in the description of this, but just keep in mind, like anything else, these have expiration dates, so I don't intend to keep up with it. I'm sure there'll be alternatives or things that are similar that you can use. For the particular one that I selected, there was 3 choices in terms of the hue, and I'm not going to get into the details of that, but just high level, they had a 2700, which is more of a warm light. This is the 4K, which is neutral, and then they had a 6K that they call daylight, but it gets more into the blue hues of the LED lighting. In terms of the tools I needed, all I needed was my trusty electric drill and this 3/8 drill bit in order to carry across the strips and keep them recessed, and I'll explain that next. In terms of preparation and planning, just make sure your surface is clean, as these adhesive strips and the little adhesive clips tend to fall off if the surface isn't clean. And then if you'll notice, this is where I started on the corner here where the power supply is, and I'm guessing probably the RF receiver that receives the RF signal from the remote is probably built into the power supply here. If you notice, I just carried this up from the edge, and then they have a manual switch in case you lose the remote. So just keep this in mind in terms of the planning of positioning where you want things. So next, for the positioning and planning of this, I wanted this as far out of the edge of this as to have as much of an even distribution of light on the countertop as possible. So the first thing I did was actually I put the strip right on this edge here, and that did not turn out well because unfortunately what you can see is when you look at it this way is you can see a glowing sort of orange dot for every LED, and it doesn't look professional. So with that being said, I went to plan B and decided to stick it on the inside of this edge, and I'll show you how I did that. The problem that you'll encounter when you want to go on the inside is you have the separation of each of the cabinets, and this is where the 3/8 drill came into place. Notice I just drilled a hole here. This doesn't harm anything structurally, but allows me to carry the LED strip across without having to go on the underside here and keeping it tucked in and professional. This is the left side of the corner cabinet that I drilled a hole through each bottom side here to carry it across. And notice it doesn't separate until you get to this part here. So for that reason, I didn't want to use one of those flexible connectors. It was forgiving enough that I just allowed it to bend a little bit, and it's not adhered to the base, and just allowed a slight curve, and then picked up the adhesive and then kept it flat until I came to the other side of the corner cabinet here, and then continued it flat from that point forward. Then notice right before the stove here is where I used this connector cord to change the direction. And I did this for a couple of reasons. Number one, I didn't want the strip directly over the stove, and I didn't want it also in the way. As you can see, the vent, there's the integrated light into the microwave too. And also I didn't want you to see that cross section of the LEDs that I was talking about if you look at it from a side view. So if you notice, I just had these adhesive clips, carried it over this way, and then it tucked into nicely just on the underside of the microwave with a hole drilled on either cabinet on each side of the stove. And that is it, folks. That easy. And if you'll notice, when I was underneath the cabinet, you could see some of the cords and cables, but you can clearly see that I've recessed it enough that you would have to actually get underneath to actually see any of that. I'm crouching down right now, but if you're at just standing level, you don't see any of that. In addition to even the lighting underneath the microwave is very well recessed and carried across in a manner that looks very professional, and hope this video helps some of you out there that are trying to get some lighting underneath your cabinetry.